One word. One hypnotist, Chris Jones. One word. The One Word Chris Jones podcast. Talking with Chris this month about how is it bringing a child in to the world now when we're dealing with everything that we're dealing with you know, the riots around the country and around the world, the pandemic that we've all been basically quarantined from everybody else. Is it scary to be a new dad or a dad to be in this time?
I'm still excited. I have a little bit of perspective because I've gotten into history books and photo photography, photojournalism. So, you know, this is nothing new. People have been having the same arguments since the 1920s. So, you know, I just want to raise a kid who can look back and take a minute and say, all right, what have we done in the past to get over this?
The interesting thing is that my twins were born in 2001, in November of 2001, after the attack on our country, you know, the 9/11 attacks. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was scared to death. I'm like, what are we doing bringing children into this world at this time? But you know, they've done really well. And then they graduate this year when everything's kind of shut down. So, I mean, they've had a couple of trying times. I think that'll push them to be that much better in the future. And my hope is that's the case for baby Jones as well.
Thanks. That's very good perspective. That, what are they, 18 years old?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also scary. Like these young kids, like your kids' age, can fight in a war that's as old as they are. I remember when September 11th happened, they said we're going to get the evildoers who did this, and it'll be a fast war, and you know, we're just going to get Saddam, and he's been dead for a while now.
Where do you see the world going now that you know, we've had the riots happening around the country, and you know, I heard this morning on the radio that they're happening around the world, that there's some rioting happening around the world for George Floyd. Do you think that this will end up being something or changing something? You know, I thought when Rodney King, when that happened, I thought that was going to change the world, and I don't think it did, Chris.
Yeah. I think trying to change the world is like trying to make the world stop spinning. The only thing constant in life is change. I learned that from Phil Jackson. But we can spin with the world if we spin together, you know? A little bit of empathy goes a long way. I don't know. I still have hope because I'm optimistic, but I don't think it'll ever be solved, quote unquote. I was reading, there's a lot of misinformation going around saying even that George Floyd didn't die, that the police and him were actors. And so that's stirring up some conversations that should not be a conversation at all.
So who comes up with this conspiracy BS? That's what I want to know.
Well, the same is true for Sandy Hook. People said, oh, Sandy Hook, it's a conspiracy to get your guns. Nazis had PR people. They had public relations. But even the Klan had public relations people. They work on their image. And I'm sure someone said, oh, well, wouldn't it be crazy if this happened? Yes, let's push that story as if it actually did happen. That's why I love journalism even more now.
One of the first things that you said when we started talking today is that you were reading in the history books and that this kind of stuff has happened forever. And I believe that, I believe that. I think that nowadays we're more aware of it, hyper aware of it now because of the fact that we have everything at the palm of our hands. We can get information immediately, if not sooner, as it's happening. Mm-hmm. And things in the past weren't always that way because, I mean, you know, you think about when our parents were children, that they went to the movie theater and there was a newsreel at the beginning of a show.
Oh yeah, because that was, oh man, on the comedy side. Think about the bank robbers back in the day.
Yeah,
they rob a bank, maybe have a mask on. They shoot their initials into the side of the wall. Like, yeah, if anyone asked, it was Copper and the boys. Nah.
Yeah.
Like, there is no police force.
And then, you know, then when I was, because I'm 20 years older than you, when I was a kid, we'd find about it on, you know, in the newspaper because it came, sooner. When you were a kid, things were on television immediately when it happened because they'd come up with, ways to do that. And then, when my kids, it was internet. And by the time your child is older, who knows, it might just be like thought processed into their heads. I know that's a weird way of thinking about things, but I mean, you look at how things have changed and how we get our news now compared to the way that we got it in the past, and it's just...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I still get the physical paper to my house delivered 5 days a week. There's so many things. We have so much technology. Like, Stacy likes to watch the Weather Channel, and she's like, how come we can't stop hurricanes and tornadoes yet? Like, we can bomb the earth, but we can't stop the tornado from destroying a family's home?
The more things change, Chris, the more they say the same. I mean,
or the dumber you feel.
Yeah. Well, there's days I think that I've got the answers, and then something happens, and I have no idea what the hell's going on anywhere. Yeah. I don't even have control of my own life, let alone something else, It is.
Right.
It's crazy. So let me, I hate to bring race into our conversation.
Please, let's do it.
So, being a black man now with what's going on, with everything in the world right now. I mean, is it different than it was 2 weeks ago?
Oh, without a doubt. 2 weeks ago, I went running, and I just went running because it was fun. And now I go running, and I don't want to wave at a police car, but I feel obligated to. I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of police officers that live next to me. I don't want to wave as much. I wave when I'm walking the dog. I was even scared. I was like, I'm going to go running. Am I running too fast or anything? Or that I stole something? How do I look like I'm clearly a runner and not looting someone's home? And maybe that's just me being sensitive. But remember, in Georgia, the man was shot by civilians for running, for jogging.
Yeah.
And
it killed the man. It killed him.
It killed him. Yeah. And that man was a former police officer.
Yeah. Are you more aware of it because you're black?
I'm aware of.
Then let's say than I would be.
Oh, I mean, when you came to Chicago and you were talking about when you got pulled over, and there were some black people next to us, and you told the story, we were laughing at what you said, a little bit of you being naive, and you're my wonderful friend. But you said I was very polite. I had my hands in the wheel. I was like, sorry, officer. And we were like, yeah, like that's where it starts when you get pulled over. Like, we asked permission to go into the glove compartment. We let them know my wallet's in my pocket. Can I get it? Like, we get super scared when we get pulled over.
When I was telling the story, and then you mentioned that to me, I was, at the time it was 2019 or 2018 or whenever it was, and I was surprised that happens, in those days. And now all of a sudden it's 2020, and the BS that happened in Minneapolis is unacceptable. I mean, it's hard to believe that kind of crap happens in 2020.
And then I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember the name of the young lady. I think it was Brianna. She was in bed with her boyfriend or husband, and the police in Louisville burst into the home without a warrant, without identifying themselves as police. Her boyfriend was in the house, thought it was a burglar, fired a couple shots. The police fired multiple shots, and they killed her. And she was a first responder, not a police officer, but a first responder, and she is gone now. But it wasn't on camera. And the man who shot, thinking it was a burglar, was brought up on trials of attempted murder. Those charges have been dropped now. But Stacy, she argued, why is it that when a black man gets shot, killed by police while he's unarmed, you get national attention, but when it's a black woman, we don't hear about it?
That's a legitimate question, Chris. I don't know. Do you think that a lot of what we're having now is caused by media?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that that's wrong. But if we unpack some ugly stuff, society always gives more prestige and power to men. And so when something is fighting against the powers that be, a man is usually attacked, dragged down, what have you. To unpack it further and be very ugly, if a black man was accused of raping a white woman, he would get lynched and killed. A mob would show up, drag him out of his house.
In 2020?
Oh, no. In the old days.
Okay.
Like, you get accused of like Emmett Till was a Chicago kid who went, I think, to the South, Alabama, Mississippi, and allegedly whistled at a white woman, and a white mob showed up where he was staying at his cousin's house, and they held him for a few days, and then they popped out his eye, and they just tortured him, and these men were later acquitted, and then wrote a book saying, yeah, we did that. And that was one of the things Muhammad Ali raised awareness about. I say all this to say, we don't protect women in this society to begin with. So when there is an injustice that happens to a woman, we're like, well, what was she wearing? What was she doing? She shouldn't have been there. We blame the victim. But when it's on camera, we're like, okay, now I see what I believe are all the facts. I have an opinion, and then people do some action. It is upsetting.
So any final thoughts today, Chris?
Last night I couldn't sleep too well because I kept thinking about all lives matter, that argument. In one of the suburbs of Chicago, there was a Black Lives Matter protest and an All Lives Matter protest across the street. And if you're going to say all lives matter, and I'm saying you as like an angry person, if you're arguing not out of love, but you're arguing, don't all lives matter? Doesn't my life matter as a white person? Are you putting down my value as a white person? I would say you don't believe all lives matter because there's a kid separated from their parent right now in a detention center. You don't believe an ISIS member life matters. You don't believe that someone crossing the border illegally matters. You don't believe that kids have the right to grow up and not get shot in their own American schools. So I'm going to argue you don't believe all lives matter. It's a fine argument that lasts for about 2 seconds. But if you really, truly in your heart wanted to be an advocate for all lives having mattered, you wouldn't be angry in the way that you are.
Find entertainer and hypnotist Chris Jones at hypnotistchrisjones.com. The One Word Chris Jones Podcast, a podcast for higher production.